What's up, Zero Books readers? My name is Danny Scott. I am freelance producer for Zero Books and occasional on-screen talent on your favourite YouTube channel. What is the destiny of humanity? Do we have one? For Karl Marx, destiny had a name: communism, or the classless society. In this video, I'll be talking about Jason Barker's novel, Marx Returns, and using it to explore ideas about communism, history, class struggle, technology, human destiny, and time travel. In their Communist Manifesto, published in 1848, Marx and Engels famously declare, "A spectre is haunting Europe, the spectre of communism." 170 years later, and communism is still widely portrayed as a spectre, a nightmarish demon that puts the fear of God into respectable folks. Today, no one actually lives communism. It may intrigue or inspire us, but mostly the idea of communism just petrifies us. Today's political ghostbusters portray communism as a threat. Obey the law of capitalism, they warn us, or else communism will unleash unspeakable crimes and destroy the natural order of things. Communism, in the eyes of the masses, is fear, and fear is anxiety, the irrational fear of the unknown, the fear of the future, which by definition hasn't happened yet. But what about the real thing? What would a communist society actually be like? For Marx, communism in the form of a classless society would always remain an ideal, in the sense that nowhere in his work does he elaborate on the concept of class. In his recent biography, A World to Win, The Life and Works of Karl Marx, Sven-Erik Liedman highlights some of the main difficulties Marx ran into when trying to define class. The members of a class, according to Liedman, each have their own definite source of income: wages, profit, or interest. This, however, is not enough. In that case, doctors and civil servants, for example, would also constitute classes. In addition, workers, capitalists, and landowners could also be split up into different interest groups through the division of labour. Communism may be a classless society, but without a clear understanding of what class actually is, we might as well say that communism is a society without unicorns. If communism cannot be defined by class, and therefore by classlessness, then can it be defined in some other way? For G.W.F. Hegel, history was leading somewhere, not towards communism, but toward the perfection of the rational liberal state. Though Marx was no liberal, he believed that history could be rationally understood, and its so-called laws of motion inferred. But is history itself rational? And if it is, in what sense? In Stanley Kubrick's 2001 A Space Odyssey, we find humanity in the state of nature, or what Kubrick names the dawn of man. An unexplained alien encounter communicates the power of abstract reasoning. Technology, or what Marx would call the forces of production, creates a revolution in the relations of production, which enables the tribe to dominate its rivals and seize possession of natural resources. At the beginning of this video, I asked what real communism might be like. Perhaps the answer lies in Marx and Hegel's understanding of history. For Marx, history was something that people do. Men make their own history, Marx declared in 1850, albeit not under the circumstances chosen by themselves, but under circumstances directly found, given and transmitted from the past. In striving to create the future society, we cannot avoid being weighed down by revolutionary traditions. The future doesn't have a script. Like the virgin territory of an undiscovered country, the future is off the charts, terra incognita, and beyond the limits of what we can possibly know. In striving to make a clean break from the past, revolutionaries down the ages, from the Jacobins to Khmer Rouges, have concluded that the only way to go forward was to go back, or at least to wind back the clock to zero. In Jason Barker's Marx Returns, our hero surveys the newly constructed Big Ben from the south bank of the River Thames. It's the 19th of March, 1871, the day after the outbreak of the workers' uprising that would soon become the Paris Commune. How ironic, Marx thought, that the Tories had constructed a giant clock for overseeing it all. A clock for counting down the time to their own destruction and to the arrival of the new society, year zero. How admirably progressive and revolutionary the bourgeois class were. Once fully arrived in the new society, one would no doubt need a new type of clock. The idea of counting down to zero is, philosophically speaking, a strange way of thinking about revolution. Does revolution have a time? In Barker's novel, Marx repeatedly tries to predict when the revolution is going to arrive with the aid of complicated mathematical formulae. In an earlier chapter of the novel, set some 20 years earlier, Jenny Marx echoes her husband's utopian sentiments by pondering the following. The idea of spending a day and a half or 2 or 3 in the company of friends. I think it would be much nicer if we did away with time altogether and just did as we pleased for as long as we liked. Don't you? Here, Jenny invites us to imagine a world unhindered by labour time. According to Jenny, time dominates us. It's a social problem that stems from the unnatural separation between our public and private lives. But is this concept of non-temporal time really livable? What sort of society would it be if everyone lived at their own pace? Would we be able to do as we pleased, in the way that Jenny imagines, if time were completely disorganised? This seems less a recipe for communism than for civil war.
A communist society would be a society where everyone would be allowed to dwell in his or her own stupidity. You know who gave me this idea? Even Fred Jameson, who said, what if you imagine communism not as a perfectly normal society, but like a crazy society that you find like in some Bruegel's painting?
When it comes to communism, instead of pretending to break with the past, perhaps we'd find more success in trying to reinvent it. After all, if according to Marx, the past is the future's material, how else could we hope to make history? In part 3 of Barker's Marx Returns, entitled Back to the Future, Marx returns to Trier to settle his late mother's legacy. As the title suggests, returning home isn't a nostalgic journey. By returning home, Marx uncovers a shocking truth from his childhood that changes his own past. Arguably the most famous dramatisation of the idea that we can change the past appears in the Hollywood time travel movie Back to the Future, starring Michael J. Fox. Marty McFly is the archetypal teenager, desperately trying to escape his own average destiny. He befriends a mad professor and ends up travelling 30 years back in time to 1955, the year the time machine he's travelling in was invented and his parents first met. His challenge, to get back to the future. But there's a problem. Marty's future is already in the past. In other words, in travelling back to a time before he was even born and interfering with the lives of his parents, he risks erasing himself from history. Back to the Future is the ultimate American dream movie, affirming that, regardless of social class, anyone can become anyone they want to be. Yes, we can. This is precisely why Back to the Future, unlike Marx Returns, is not a tragedy. In Barker's novel, Marx's return to Trier changes his own past. I've never had a crystal ball, Marx explains to Hélène Demuth. I always made decisions in circumstances that were not of my own choosing. In tragedy, changing one's past means that the future will be completely unpredictable. We escape our destiny by making it, albeit under circumstances, as Marx says, that are not of our own choosing. Maybe such unpredictability and the complete freedom to choose is how we ought to think of communism. A time which is out of joint, a place lacking both nostalgia and anxiety, past and future.
Great Scott!
Thanks for watching this Zero Books video. If you enjoyed it, subscribe to this channel and click on the notifications bell so that you'll be alerted whenever we release a new video. You should also consider supporting us on Patreon. Our patrons get access to our Inside Zero Books podcast every week and can get access to the Zero Books Book Club and help us to continue making online content from the left.